Digitizing your paper patterns is one of the very first steps in creating a PDF sewing pattern, but it's also where a lot of people get stuck because there's simply not a whole lot of information out on the internet about how to do this in a foolproof way. I hear people say this all of the time. I would love to turn my design into a PDF sewing pattern, but I literally just don't even know where to start. Well, fortunately, you are in the right place. This is where you're going to start. Back when I was doing sewing pattern collaborations, digitizing paper patterns was actually the very first hurdle that I ran into. Most of the people that I was working with didn't actually even live in the same state as me, and I'd never met them in real life. So at first my thought was, oh, I'll just have them mail me the paper patterns and then I'll figure out how to digitize them, but it kind of seemed like a waste of time, and I figured that there had to be a better way. My friend Kara from Small Museum was actually one of the very first people that I ever did a sewing pattern collaboration with, and shout out to her because she helped me figure out the details of digitizing paper patterns. Okay, so without further ado, this is the method that I used for all of my sewing pattern collaborations, and it's the exact method that I'm going to teach you right now. So there's a few things that we're going to need to get started, and the first, of course, is your paper sewing pattern. The second thing is a large roll of paper. This is just like a manila paper. You can also get the brown cardboard style paper from any crafting store. I think they also sell them at Home Depot. So if you don't have that already, you are going to need that. We're also going to need a Sharpie, and it's important that it's a Sharpie and not like a thin pen. Then you're going to need a flash drive as well as an adapter if your computer doesn't have the USB port. So for me, I'll take this flash drive and then I will stick it into this, and then this section can go into my computer. Not everybody is going to need this adapter, but it might be something you need if you have a Mac. Okay, now let's get into actually showing you how to do it. To start out, we're going to roll out our piece of paper, and then we're going to grab our paper pattern pieces. You're going to want to orient your pattern pieces close together, the same way that you would if you were trying to conserve fabric. Then you're going to grab your Sharpie and some sort of weight to hold your paper down. After that, all you're going to do is trace out these pattern pieces. Make sure that when you're tracing, you are also tracing off all of your notches. I like to use a pattern notcher to make really nice notches in that paper. That way it's super easy to trace off. Tracing off your paper pattern pieces onto a larger piece of paper is absolutely key. You can technically take your pattern pieces to a copy shop and just have them scan them off. However, it's going to be significantly more expensive for you because they're going to charge you by piece. And instead, by doing this, where we're tracing off our pattern onto one big piece of paper, they're only going to charge you based on the size of the piece of paper rather than for each individual pattern piece. I want to give a major shout out to my friend Sydney, who actually came up with this method when we were doing our first ever pattern collaboration together. I had originally directed her to take her paper pattern pieces to a large format scanner and then have them scanned off at 100% scale, but when she got there, the people looked at her like, what are you talking about? I don't even know how to do this, because the paper pattern pieces are just so different than a standard size of paper, and so going this route actually makes it easier for the people at the copy shop, and it makes it more cost effective for you. Now, once all of your pattern pieces are traced off, this is what they should be looking like. You can go ahead and remove those pieces of paper because now we are going to create measurement squares on each pattern piece. I'm creating a 2" by 2" square, and this is very, very important to do. It doesn't matter if it's 2 inches by 2 inches or 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, whatever works best for you. But if you do not do this, it'll be really hard to tell if your pattern pieces are scaled properly. And if you don't scale your pattern pieces properly, you are inevitably going to have fit issues with your garment once it's sewn up. This is the same reason why it's very common to have measurement squares on the very first page of a print at home sewing pattern. That way, when you print it off, you can ensure that the pattern pieces were scaled properly. So go ahead and make your measurement squares on every single pattern piece, and then we are going to cut out this piece of paper so we can bring it to the copy shop. Now that your paper pattern pieces are traced off, we need to take this piece of paper to a large format scanner. These can be found at a local copy shop, which is the same kind of place where you would get a large format AO piece of paper printed. So the thing about copy shops is that they can be kind of expensive, and it just depends on where you go. I highly, highly recommend calling around to local copy shops and seeing how much a large format scan is going to cost before you actually go there. I've had people quote me upwards of like $45 for a single scan, which is absolutely outrageous. outrageous. Do not spend that much money. For reference, the best prices that I've found are somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 per scan. In my experience, FedEx is the most user-friendly and cost-effective place to do large format scanning, but of course I'm based in the US and you might not be, so go ahead and call around to find the best place for you. Another cool thing about FedEx specifically is that some locations have self-serve scanners, which means after you figure out how to do it for the very first time ever, you won't have to go back and ask an associate for help. Now that you've chosen your copy shop of choice, you're going to take the piece of paper that we prepared as well as a USB flash drive. If you do not bring your flash drive, they're not going to be able to help you, so be sure not to forget this. So now all you're going to do is give these two things to an associate and ask them to scan them in at 100% scale. Please make sure that it's at 100% scale, because if it is not scaled correctly, you're going to have fitting issues later down the line. Once you're home from the copy shop, you are going to take your flash drive and stick it into your computer. If you don't have a USB port, you're going to need an adapter like this one, and then this part will go into the computer. Now let's get to digitizing. Okay, so I just got back from FedEx. My flash drive is in my computer, and now we are going to go into Adobe Illustrator and open a new file. I'm gonna do 200 by 200 inches, which is just the largest artboard that you can have on Illustrator. I like to work on large artboards. It doesn't actually need to be this large, but it will certainly give you enough space to trace out your pattern. So this is the picture that we scanned at FedEx, and I'm going to drag and drop this picture into Illustrator. And then you can see that right now it's sideways. I'm going to take this black selection tool here, and if you go to the corner, you can turn it. And when you do this, if you press shift, you'll notice that it locks on whatever, 45-degree angle, 90-degree angle, wherever you want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and let go. And now we have something that we can trace off. So the first thing that we need to do to get started is to lock this picture. So you can lock the picture by doing Command 2. And what that does is it allows you to, grab this picture but not be able to move it. And if you go into this layers panel here, you can also see that it's locked right there. If you click that, now it's unlocked. You can go back and click it here. Command 2 on the keyboard is the hotkey to lock it without having to go into the layers. Okay, the first thing that we need to do is ensure that this was scaled correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this rectangle here and click and go to tab 2, which is 2 inches by 2 inches. Press enter, and now we have our 2 inch by 2 inch square. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab this and put it there. Amazing. That looks like it's scaled correctly. You can see that there's a fill on this, and I don't want there to be a fill, so I'm going to grab this little guy, and now you can see the outline of the shape, but you can also see through the shape. Now I know that the squares that I drew were a little bit sloppy, but you can tell that this is scaled correctly. Now before we get started, I'm also going to ensure that all of these pieces were scaled correctly. So I'm going to take this square and do Command C and Command F. So that is copy and paste on top. Okay, so now I can move this away, and that is the copied version of this square that's still here. Okay, so we're gonna do that again. Command C. You could also do Command V. So if I do Command C and then Command F, it's paste on top. If I do Command C and Command V, it's just going to paste it somewhere else. So now I can move this over here, and I'm actually going to close this layers panel because we don't need it right now. And then Command C, Command V. Go ahead and grab that. Amazing. Command C, Command V. Okay, beautiful. Everything has been scaled properly. I love to see it. Once you've done that, you can just go ahead and delete all of those boxes because they're not necessary. And then we're gonna go ahead and simply trace off all of these pattern pieces. So to do that, we need the pen tool here. So go ahead and click on the pen tool and then simply start tracing this off, okay? If you've never used the pen tool, it can be a little bit difficult to get the hang of. So what I want you to do is to start out by tracing it off to the best of your ability, and then we can go back and adjust any of those curve handles as necessary, especially when you get to curves. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click and drag, and what you'll see is that there's a curve handle that comes out of that, right? So if I grab the white selection tool now and I zoom in, you can take this curve handle and change how it's angled. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this pen tool and keep tracing. We're just gonna go like this, something like that. And then there's a curve there, so we're gonna pull a little curve handle and then go here and straight up. And then I'm gonna see if I can pull one curve handle for this entire shape, like this. And it's a little bit off, but if I press enter, now I can go ahead and grab this white selection tool and then use the curve handle
to change the curve until it's nice. And I could probably be a little bit more accurate about this, so I'm going to grab that and move it over a little bit, and then that'll help me get probably a nicer shape. And you know, what I'm noticing here is that I can't quite get the shape that I want over here, which probably means that I need 2 curve handles. So one curve handle will come out of this side, the other curve handle will come out of this side. In order to do that, I'm going to use this selection tool here. It's called Anchor Point. And then we are going to grab it and pull, take that white selection tool again, and now I have a curve handle coming out of both sides, so I can adjust both sides until it looks exactly how I want it to. And for me, that's pretty accurate. So now we can go ahead and do this. I'm going to go to the center here and then pull a curve handle. That looks really nice. Amazing. And then continue here. If I press enter, I can grab that white selection tool, adjust the curve handle until it's to my liking, and then, oops, sometimes my hand falls on top of like the scroll pad and then it gets a little squirrely, so my zoom goes crazy every once in a while. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this, and again, I'm gonna want 2 curve handles out of this guy, so I will pull that one, grab my white selection tool again, and go like this. And like I said, if you are unfamiliar with how to use Adobe Illustrator, this might take some practice to really accurately trace shapes, but it is such a good skill to have, so I highly recommend going through all of the motions. Now, one other thing that I want to make sure that I have is my notches. So for a notch, we can grab this line tool here, and we can just pull the notch like that. Super easy. And then we can go ahead and pull another notch just like that. Okay, amazing. This is our first shape traced off, and what I'm going to do is group these together. So if I pull a box over this entire area, which also has these notches included, I can go Command G, which groups that together. You could also go into Object at the top and then find Group. It's not going to allow me to group it here right now because these shapes are already grouped together. But what that's going to do is it's going to ensure that when you move the shape, those notches are still attached to it. Okay, so now we have this shape traced out. Amazing. We can go ahead and move on to tracing the rest of them. So let's go ahead and trace off this shape, just like this. I also noticed that I did not create grain lines on this, like I didn't draw in my grain lines, but that's okay, we can add the grain lines in after. All right, and you just keep going. For me, this looks like we're gonna need 2 curve handles, so we'll go like that, and then like this. Amazing. That shape already looks really nice. I don't think I need to go back and change anything, but I do want to add in my notches here. And you see how this can, it can, you know, become a lot faster when you have practice. So if it's not feeling super natural to you right now, don't worry about it. It's going to be totally okay. It just takes time. Okay, so we're going to grab all these pieces again, and we're going to do Command G, which will group those notches to the pattern piece. All right, now let's keep, whoops, my zoom went all squirrely again. All right, now let's keep tracing off the pattern pieces. We're going to go like this, and then like this. It looks like I probably need to go a little bit higher, so I just did Command Z to go backwards. And then we're gonna try that again, and then like this. All right. Amazing. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I think we could probably improve this shape a little bit right here. So I'm gonna pull that piece up and then try to adjust this a little bit. That looks a lot better to me. Okay, and then let's not forget those notches. And basically, we're just gonna do this to every single pattern piece. Okay, And then again, we're going to group it. So you can do Command G, or one more time, if we go to Object and then Group right here, you can group it like that. And you'll notice also that if you go into the selection up here and you find whatever you're trying to do, you'll see at the corner here what the hotkeys are. So if I was going to group it, it's Command G. Yours might be different. If you don't have a Mac, it might be like Option G or something like that. So that's where you can find all of the hotkeys. I highly recommend learning the hotkeys just because it's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to make this process a lot faster as well. Okay, let's keep doing this. I think I want to go to there, and then here. We'll just keep tracing. And this one looks like it's going to need a tiny curve handle. Amazing. And then let's get those notches. Notch 1, notch 2, and so on and so forth. You'll also notice that I'm zooming in and out really easily, and that's because I have a trackpad. I'm using a MacBook, and so all MacBooks come with a trackpad. If you don't have a trackpad and you're using like a standard mouse, you might need to use the scroll wheel to scroll in and out. I don't find that that's super intuitive to me, and so if I'm using Adobe Illustrator on something that's not my MacBook, I actually purchased a separate trackpad that connects via Bluetooth. That way I can have that function of scrolling in and out. It's not necessary, but I'm so used to the trackpad functions that I really enjoy it, and I actually purchased mine secondhand on Facebook Marketplace, so I can highly recommend that. It's a great way to get a good deal on a trackpad. Okay, let's just keep going. Okay, and then the last piece that I need to trace off here, oh, I should group this together before I forget. I'm gonna group those and then group these. The last piece that I need to trace off is this rectangular piece, and I'm actually just gonna go and grab the rectangle tool, and if I click in one corner and I hold and drag, I can make the shape that I want really easily. So that's a little trick if you have a rectangular piece. You can also grab that tool, click, and then put in the exact dimensions that you want. Okay, so these are all of our pattern pieces. I'm going to grab them, and if I do Command C, Command V, now I have all of my pattern pieces. So at this point, I'm also going to add my grain lines. In order to do this, I want to make sure that everything is oriented properly. So I'm going to grab this tool again, the line tool, and create a line. I want this line to be horizontal, and if I hold down Shift, it's going to lock on the vertical, okay? And now I'm going to grab all of these pieces. I know that this straight line here needs to be on the vertical, so I'm going to take one corner and put it there on the line, and then I'm going to take this rotate tool and I'm going to rotate it on this corner. So you see how it's like a little bit off kilter? If I pull it, now I've rotated it on that corner and it's exactly where I want it to be. Okay, and we're going to do that again. Let's grab this piece and do this. It's actually already perfectly straight, so I don't need to worry about that piece. And let's see about these ones. That one's a little bit off kilter, and this one, let's zoom in so that these match each other. There we go. That one's a little bit off kilter too, okay? So I'm going to grab this rotate tool, click there, zoom in, and rotate that. Now it's perfectly level. We're going to do the same with this one. We need to grab our black selection tool, click there, grab this rotate, and pull this up. Amazing. Okay, and then I'm actually also going to grab this one, pull it down to there, and then grab my rotate tool, rotate it right here so that that's level now. Amazing. And I'm going to delete this because that was just a guideline for us. And now we can go through and add our grain lines. So for me, the grain line goes like this. I'm going to hold shift so that it locks on the vertical. And then if we go over here, you'll find this section that says arrowheads. And I want an arrowhead on both sides. I like arrowhead number 3. You can choose whichever one you like. Oops, I have to actually select this line in order for that to work. So let's try that again. Arrowhead 3, again, arrowhead 3, and now if you zoom in, you'll see that there's arrows on both sides. And because I've already made one, now I'm just going to copy and paste it. So Command C, Command V, move it over here. Command C, Command V, move it over here. Again, Command C, Command V, move it over here. Okay, and if you want, you can lengthen these. So with the white selection tool, that will allow you to grab just one side, and I can pull it down here. If I hold the button shift, it's going to ensure that it stays vertical. And you can do that with all of them if you would like them to be longer or shorter, totally up to you. Amazing. Okay, and then same things for these ones. I'm going to hold shift, make a line, and then for this one I want the grain line to be that way. Hold shift, make a line. And then I need to add arrowheads to them. So we're going to do this, arrowhead, arrowhead, and then grab this guy, do arrowhead and arrowhead. Okay, and now what needs to happen is we need to group the grain line to the pattern piece. So like this, Command G, amazing, Command G, Command G, Command G, Command G again, and last but not least, Command G. Okay, fabulous. Now, if we go into our layers panel, you're going to see all of the pieces and parts. So if I click right here in the corner, it'll light up the pattern piece that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and name these. If you double click, you can update this. I'm gonna say that one's A. Let's do this one as B. There we go. Let's do this one as C, D, E, and F. Okay, and then these ones over here are going to be these pattern pieces, right? Okay, yeah, we don't need those ones anymore because we've already traced them off. So I'm just going to grab those and delete them. And this one, again, if we unlock it, is that picture. Okay, we're going to lock that again. And these are now our pattern pieces, completely digitized and traced out. Now, as you probably know, this is only the first step of many steps to creating a PDF sewing pattern. You have to write instructions, create illustrations, do finished garment measurement charts, fabric consumption charts. You have to run a smooth pattern testing. You also have to learn how to organize and implement feedback from that pattern testing so that you can make the best pattern possible. There's marketing, getting your pattern in front of the right eyes, SEO, which stands for search engine optimization, potentially creating and editing a YouTube tutorial. There's just like so much that goes into the entire process of creating a sewing pattern that people are actually going to want to purchase. And of course, if you're going through all of this effort to create a PDF sewing pattern, you probably want people to purchase it. So if you found value out of this video, I have so much more content to share with you. I have an entire course that goes through every single step of the process to creating sewing patterns. Whether you're a pattern maker or a self-drafter, I can help you create a successful sewing pattern business, one high quality sewing pattern at a time. And I do exactly that in my Pattern to Market course, where I help lots of students create amazing and beautiful digital sewing patterns. The best part about it is that my students are supported every single step of the process. There's no uncertainty of their next step, and they have all of the tools that they need to be successful. I've made tons of in-depth videos, and I've also created templates so that my students don't have to reinvent the wheel. That means when they're ready to write instructions, there's a template for them to do so, and a supporting video that walks you through every single step of the process. The same thing goes for all of the forms that are necessary for doing pattern testing calls, getting feedback from your testers, and all of the things that go into creating a successful sewing pattern. If you're unfamiliar with all these things that I'm talking about, you are in the right place. I would love to have you in Pattern to Market and mentor you so that you can have the successful sewing pattern business of your dreams. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and you can find all of the information about Pattern to Market below.